Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between the Warriors of Chaos, led by the KFC Lord, and the Empire, who's going to be led by Balthazar Gelt. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So in the front line, we do have a combination of the Chaos Warriors with great weapons, and I actually think we do have one group of elite infantry here in the middle, the Chosen, which I don't know if it's worth bringing here, but again, I just wanted to have one really heavy troop that I could kind of anchor my army around. So we do have the Chosen in the middle, two groups of Chaos Warriors with great weapons, just in case my opponent does go with heavy greatsword play. Because since this most recent patch, I've been seeing a ton of greatswords with like Volkmar the Grim, and of course, as you guys know, the Warrior Priests have been buffed and their effects are now AoE. So Empire Infantry has been a lot more common. Granted, I don't think it's like terribly competitive still, but for example, if I had just went with like Chaos Marauders and Chaos Warriors with the swords and shields, and he came with like a full army of like greatswords with Volkmar the Grim just yelling angrily on, above them, I would have just gotten cut down in the front line, which is definitely not what you want to happen when you're playing the Warriors of Chaos against the Empire. So as such, we do have some AP in the front line. We have the Chosen with great weapons and the Chaos Warriors with great weapons. And just in case he goes very heavy with missile play, like crossbows and handgunners and silver bullets, I do have a ton of Marauders. So basically I could just shift the Marauders into the front line position and let them take the damage. So a very wide front line. And as you guys know, you've probably seen this in 100 of my different casts. Anytime you're playing against the Empire, you always want to go very wide. That's how you beat them. If you go narrow, they're very good at isolating and taking you out. In the back, we do have the Demon Spew, the Regiment of Renown of Forsaken. Very good at just kind of moving around the battlefield and applying their AoE debuff here, the Swarm of Flies, for -5 melee attack, which is really good. They got poison, they can get into handgunners, they just are a very solid unit. They can help out in the cap fights, because they also do have 46 speed, so a very, very solid unit on the Chaos roster here. We have Chaos Knights and Hounds, so one group of those, but I'm definitely outmatched in the Cav game, as my opponent does have two Demogryph Knights with Halberds, as well as the Royal Altdorf Griffites, so things are going to get pretty hog wild. I have the Warp Chicken. I like him quite a bit. He's very durable against missile fire. I got Transmutation of Lead as well as Searing Doom, so we're not going to be using the final Transmutation, which would have been really good against Balthazar Gelt. Unfortunately, we're, well, actually, I don't know. What is his magic resist? I assume he has some sort of a magic affinity here, but Balthazar Gelt, we shall find your magic resist at some point. Here we go. And 25. Okay, so it still would do pretty good. We do also have a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and that's pretty much it. For my opponent's army, we'll go ahead and hit play since there's some shifting here. He does have two groups of Outriders with grenade launchers, which I was super surprised to see, but yeah, they were actually pretty cool, low AP, so if they're shooting at my Marauders and stuff like that, they'll definitely massacre them pretty quickly. That's kind of what they're designed for. Even though you would think like grenades would have armor piercing, they don't really, but two Outriders here, three Demogryph Knights with Halberds, one of them being the Regiment of Renown in the back, the Royal Altdorf Griffites. He's got great swords, great swords, great swords, so an entire front line of great swords. So had I not brought the AP, man, I would have gotten dumpstered in that front line engagement. He does also have Pimp Daddy Gelt with the, looks like he's doing Plague of Rust as well as the Searing Doom, if I'm not mistaken. He does also have a Light Wizard kind of lurking around somewhere. So the Light Wizard's down here, he does have the Power Stone, and Gelt does have just Arcane Conduit, so he doesn't have anything too fancy. So anyways, you can see right now I'm going to be repositioning my forces. We'll do a little fast forwarding as we do kind of posture here. He tries to bomb me with Gelt, but I do dodge it. Thankfully, I was paying attention. So it's going to be a bit of a two-pronged fight. So I was a little bit nervous about the situation over here. So I send some of these Marauders with their shields to just take the grenades, but I don't think their shields matter against their grenades. I think it's like artillery, because they're just getting like bombed and taking a ton of damage. And even though they do have their shields up, I don't think it matters. So I was like, okay, let's waste some of his ammunition. And ultimately, I don't think that ended up being like a great idea because, man, they just got ravaged over there. In the front line, you can see I do send in the Warp Chicken to do some fighting, and he does get netted down, but the Chosen are going to be engaging with the Greatswords on the hill. So it is an uphill charge for the Chosen, but they are just such a superior infantry unit that they should be able to win this engagement. Marauders are engaging on the far side against Greatswords. That's going to be a little bit tougher. And the rest of my forces are running up and around trying to get here. And in the back, we do have a dangerous situation. I did get netted and caught out by these Royal Altdorf Griffites and took a ton of damage. So very well played. He used Plague of Rust as well to make me squishier. But I did respond with a Transmutation of Lead. And I was able to get my Shaggoth back here and get quite a few kills. So some give and take there. I think my opponent did come out ahead, but he did lose quite a bit of those guys at the end there against the Shaggoth. So the Chosen doing very well in the front line. You can see they're just pounding out the Greatswords. Over here, though, it's going a little bit better for my opponent. These Greatswords are obviously winning, but the Warp Chicken is going to come in with some Demonic Pimp Cane here and do some pretty good work. Send some of those Greatswords flying into the forest here, which is going to be very, very nice. And the Shaggoth is also going to be rushing down as well. So the Greatswords are coming in from auxiliary here. My opponent's going to be getting a bombardment, it looks like, from Balthazar Gelt, so that does pretty good damage. It kills 2 or 3 models, but it also does a lot of HP damage. So the Warp Chicken, not to be outdone, is going to be responding with the same thing here on the other group of Greatswords, and it does quite a bit more damage to those guys. In the meantime, his Greatsword auxiliary are charging down the hill, but the Chosen can probably take both of these groups. My infantry very slow, kind of trying to work around, so that was a big mistake. Now to focus on this part of the battle. So I sent some Chaos Warriors to help out over here because my Marauders got beaten, the Hounds got beaten, and my Chaos Knights also took a pounding. So I did commit to an engagement against the Demis. I was like, okay, Let's send the Chaos Knights and the Hounds and see how long they can hold, and then try and overwhelm my opponent's position over here, because this is most of his army. So I just got pounded over here, like absolutely destroyed. You can see the Demogryph Knights just chased off the Chaos Knights. The grenade launchers were just kind of wrecking my supporting troops. So it was a very tough engagement, but I would say I came out ahead over here. I basically destroyed 2 full groups of the greatswords here. So some give and take. I would ultimately say that it was a pretty even exchange, and no one really came out terribly ahead. Although he did get my lord down to half health. That's a little bit tough, but the Warp Chicken still just kind of pouncing on some of these greatswords. So what I will be doing is grabbing one group of greatswords and chasing off these greatswords. 48 models is still quite a bit. The other one I probably won't worry too much about, and you can see here the Chosen are still fighting, so Plague of Rust going down on them, which will help the greatswords a little bit. Another bombardment from the Warp Chicken is going to be triggering metal shifting across the map, and it is just such a close fight. Over here, I'm having to form ranks. I do actually catch the Royal Altar of Griffiths with some of my great opens here, as they were just kind of hanging tight for a moment. I think they just finished a move order. So they are going to take some losses against the Chaos Warriors, but I'm pretty sure my opponent will move them in just a moment. You can see he quickly realizes. In the meantime, though, the Shaggoth and Sartorial are in pretty good shape. They haven't taken too much damage since earlier. But again, if I screw up once and get caught by those Royal Altar of Griffites or the other Demogryph Knights with halberds who are pretty healthy, it's going to be rough. In the meantime, you can see the grenades are just lobbing in here into the swamps and are going to just be pounding my Chaos Warriors. I don't think it does a ton of damage against the armor, but I don't know. We'll have to go ahead and watch it here for a second. So let's go ahead and watch some of these volleys. That's doing some okay damage. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but it definitely is very good against Marauders, which are very common here. Also seeing another group of healthy greatswords routing, so 52 is quite a bit. I mean, that's a lot of stopping power. I decided to send my Dragon Ogre Shaggoth to make sure they stay off the battlefield. So, just trying to clean up. I probably should have sent some infantry to do that instead of a Shaggoth, because it's a very expensive thing to send away from the main fight, especially when there's so many Demogryph Knights left. So the Warp Chicken, also very durable against missiles, is going to be chasing down some of these Outriders, and he staggers a whole formation. It doesn't take out any of them, but in this moment, I realized I done goofed, and you can see here that the Royal Altar of Griffites are coming in, so I do have some Chaos Warriors nearby, but this is going to hurt. I will be popping a Transmutation of Lead, which will lower their melee attack as well as their weapon damage overall, I believe. Yeah, so it looks like 26 melee attack and 25% weapon damage, and I'm going to be charging with the Chaos Warrior, so that does save Warp Chicken quite a bit of damage, but he is still getting melted. The grenade launchers are slowing my advance here, but now the Chaos Warriors have caught up here, so hopefully they're going to be able to cleave down some of these Demogryph Knights, at least take out a couple of these very expensive models, but man, I took a ton of damage, so my opponent doing a really good job kind of pinning down the Warp Chicken. You can see he's going to be running through the fire and the flames, but this is good. We're getting a lot of value here. They've lost 3 Royal Altar of Griffites, and they're probably going to lose a couple more before they're able to retreat. I do have Hounds and Chaos Knights coming in the distance, so his Demogryph Knights were able to kind of screen out my Hounds over there, so very well played by my opponent. And you can see for the first time, he does pull ahead in the bounce of power, so it's looking pretty grim for the Warriors of Chaos. Granted, it's still a very close battle. I have a ton of infantry, and he is eventually going to run out of ammo on these Outriders. So the Hounds are going to be chasing down these Outriders with grenade launchers, but the Demogryph Knights, the Royal Altar of Griffites, doing a really good job. I decided to just send in these Chaos Knights. I was like, okay, maybe I can pin these guys. So the Chaos Knights come in here for a very epic charge in the swamps. And my Warriors of Chaos, so my Forsaken and other troops like that, are going to be charging, trying to get a good rear charge on these Demogryph Knights. And maybe we'll be able to pin them down, but the Chaos Knights are buckling pretty quick, only 500 HP. But you can see we're so close. The Forsaken and everyone's trying to close in there. The grenades are able to help finish off those guys, and they are terrified, unfortunately. Warp Chicken comes in. He's got his Pimp Cane. Let's see if he can do any work, but it looks like the Griffites maybe lose 1 or 2 models there. They are able to clean up those Chaos Knights. I do get a very solid bombardment right there on those Outriders, and I have Marauders and infantry coming from the forest, but a big mistake. I overchased way hard with the Dragon Ogre, so I didn't need to chase them that far, and I think I hung around there for a second too long, so I was like, oh man, I need to get back, because this fight's really close, and I don't have like a true answer against his Demogryph Knights except that Shaggoth. So the Shaggoth's hustling back. My guys are trying to chase down these Demogryph Knights right here. Just a very, very close battle all around. Some of my Hounds do come in. I try to pin them down, but my opponent has been doing a masterful job of just isolating my mobile units with his superior mobility. And you can see the Big Chicken is going to be coming in here. It looks like there's going to be a spell going down. I think a bombardment of some sort. The Chosen are also rallying with 16 models. And these Royal Altar of Griffites are kind of in the wrong neighborhood. They're surrounded by Chaos Infantry. The Demon Spew are lowering their melee attack. And they're taking a ton of damage as this Greater Demon of Tzeentch is going to be doing some heavy lifting right here. Also looks like a final transmutation is going to be going down from the KFC Lord, simply because he was doing a timing push. So he came in, and I also countered with the transmutation, which really kind of neuters his offensive stats. So at that point, he has to retreat, and the bounce of power is kind of creeping back up towards the middle. It's a very, very close fight. My opponent does have his Demogryph Knights with halberds over here. But guys, it is the moment of reckoning here. You can see the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth is emerging from the forest, and he's going to start fighting these Royal Altar of Griffites, who only have a couple models left, so he should easily be able to take them out, especially since the Marauders did take the brunt of their charge. Here comes the club. It looks like a Royal Altar. 2 of them do fall from their mounts, and yeah, they're pretty much going to break. I don't see them coming back and making a substantial difference. So the Shaggoth is back online. The grenades are just firing into my very tattered, very tired infantry as well. We've just been trudging through this swamp all day. Just definitely not a fun fight for them. The KFC Lord Sarthoriel's in pretty good shape. He has about 1200 HP. But Balthazar Gelt and his Light Wizard probably have the capabilities of sniping him in melee. He isn't like the tankiest. Of course, he only has 30 armor. Grenades are still doing some very solid work as I do trying to advance through the swamp, which is, it's so cool seeing those guys be used well. My opponent's done a masterful job with them. So 76 kills here, 67 on those guys. And the Chaos Forces are kind of just trudging through the swamp, trying to catch whatever they can, because my opponent has the initiative here. I can't really dictate the battle, but I figured at this point, I'm like, hey, my Dragon Ogre Shaggoth has 76 speed. They're 75, so I will catch them. So let's start chasing, see if I can kind of force an engagement, because if the Shaggoth does get engaged, it can then chase with them and potentially get quite a few kills here. So we'll just fast forward as there's a little bit of posturing here. So right here, I do get the engagement. He tried to get around my flank, and the Dragon Ogre does come in and clubs those Demogryph Knights down. Sarthoriel's also going to go, but he does may have that issue of leaping too far into the enemy's formation. I need to be very careful of that, but this Shaggoth's still doing a pretty good job. It looks like he might be able to get this Demogryph Knight. Come on, get him, get him, get him. It looks like he does dodge that blow, and Chaos Warrior unfortunately takes it right on the head. In the meantime, I have some Marauders here who are pretty healthy, but they're just getting blasted. So those grenades do pretty good damage against low-tier troops. Granted, Marauders are like dirt cheap anyways. So he's just kind of getting some shooting, and it looks like he's going to decide to do a charge. So you can see a timing charge with those grenades and those Marauders charging in, or not Marauders, but those grenade launchers, and they actually had a pretty impactful charge, believe it or not. And the Chaos Marauders are going to break from that charge. I think, the Royal Altdorf Griffites, there was 2 of them in there with 83 HP who actually do terrify those Marauders. So man, crazy stuff from my opponent here. So Bounce Power is creeping in my opponent's favor again a little bit, but it just keeps going back and forth towards the middle. One of the closer games we've had on the channel in a long time. And you can see that the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth is just trying to hunt these guys down. And as long as he has some support from the Demon Spew, who are very fast, he should be able to take these Demogryph Knights, no problem, with the -5 melee attack. So he's chasing, and you can see as he chases, he's picking off models. So my opponent, I think he's going to be committing to a fight here. So he charges in, takes a bunch of damage on that impact. You can see Sarthoriel and the Warriors of Chaos and the Demon Spew of Nurgle are going to be pushing in and applying some negative melee attack characteristics, which is going to be really strong. And it looks like these Demogryph Knights are going to be overwhelmed. The Chosen are starting to catch up, and I believe the Demon Spew do apply poison as well, so it's going to make it hard for them to get away with lowered speed. Sarthoriel's taking a beating, though. He's taking hundreds of damage. I do have to pop Stand or Die right there to kind of save him a little bit, and I will be running. But the grenade launchers are charging on the Chaos Warriors. He's kind of sending everything in at this point, just the final commitment. And we are able to break off all of the Demogryph Knights. They pretty much got trash canned by the Dragon Ogre, and I did take a bunch of damage on Sarthoriel, but for the most part, I would say it's worth it. Although only 830 HP, and Balthazar Gelt coming from the skies, descending for the hero as a hero of the Empire, getting a really good charge right there. Does about 300 damage. And Sarthoriel, I'm like, oh man, I got to book it. But the great Supreme Patriarch is going to hunt the Warp Chicken. He has 60 HP. I'm sure my opponent is just spam clicking right here, and he takes out the Warp Chicken. So man, Gelt is just a hero, just taking out the greater demon of chaos all by himself right there. Pretty glorious stuff. In the meantime, the Demogryph Knights with halberds are trying to rally, but the Demon Spew plus the Forsaken are able to break those guys off. So at this point, Bounce Power is in my opponent's favor a little bit, but he really doesn't have much of a chance. He just has grenade launchers and Gelt, as well as this Light Wizard, and honestly, they don't have nearly enough stopping power to take out the Shaggoth. So at this point, my opponent, gets a couple charges in, but he realizes the game's pretty much over, which is crazy because the bounce is so, even at this point, but really Gelt and, a Light Wizard have no chance. And of course, he doesn't have any more troops on the ground, really. So he has Demogryph Knights, and these Outriders are actually like wavering and breaking, so they're probably going to break as well. And he would just get a leadership penalty, so he could try and cycle charge, but I don't think he would get away with it because the Demon Spew with the poison plus the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth can just retaliate when they land because his mass is so good. So he's not going to get knocked over. So very well played to my opponent. What an incredible game. The Warriors of Chaos are able to pull that one out at the end with some hot Warp Chicken action, and man, the build worked well. I think the Chaos Warriors and the Chosen were just MVPs. Like, if I didn't bring those guys, man, that could have been rough. Marauders did their job. They were just kind of there. They were numerous. They wasted ammunition. They mucked things up. They made a bloody mess of things. And the Demon Spew did really well. I was happy with them. 39 kills, applying poison as well as negative debuffs. Shaggoth was really good, even though I made a huge blunder and forgot about him for some time. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And for my opponent's army, it was great. I was surprised. Sorry, Nurgle coughs here. I was surprised he had enough Winds of Magic to use Gelt as well as the nets, but he always seemed to have a net up. He got some really good bombardments. Definitely can't complain about that, probably because of the Power Stone. The Greatswords did okay. Demogryph Knights were a menace, and the Grenade Launchers 89 and 114, but I think that was mostly against Marauders, but still, they're not terribly expensive, and I'm sure each of them basically, was able to kind of pacify a group of Marauders, which wasn't bad. So anyways, very well played. My opponent, Flying Taco, look forward to running into again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing this Tzeentch Corn. We had the Demon Spew and as well as the Greater Demon of Tzeentch. That was kind of cool. Tag teaming Chaos Gods versus the Empire. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.